So what do I enjoy about working on the farm? Well, the biggest thing about working on the farm is I'm at home with my family when I'm working on the farm. That's the biggest one. And you know, um, it's great when we're out in the field picking peppers or whatever, and the children are out there with us, and yeah, you see them growing up. When we were married, we had our first two children. We were living in a small house, and I had a construction job. And when my oldest daughter was just starting school, I was still in construction, and I kind of all at once it was like, wait, my daughter's going to school. What happened here? How did this happen this quick? And my wife and I were talking about it one time, and I said, if time keeps going like this, my children are going to grow up, and I'm not hardly even going to see them grow up. And that's when we started seriously thinking about moving to the farm again. So I was born and raised on this farm, and I lived here till I was 22, got married, and then we lived off the farm for 10 years and came back to the farm again. So my name's Reuben Riehl. I'm the farmer. I'm the manager of Riehl Farm Produce, which is also the hub for Honey Brook Harvest Collective, which is Lauren and I.
My name is Lauren. I am the supply chain coordinator of the Honey Brook Harvest Collective. Philly Foodworks is a very interesting model. It is a internet-based, so it's a website-based CSA combined with a farmer's market. So it's essentially trying to provide the customer with a farmer's market experience. They go on the website, they shop around, or they can get a box, like a CSA box that is built but pretty much fully customizable based on the needs of the farmer. So it's a model that both is trying to meet the needs of consumers that, who knows what they want, but Philly Foodworks is able to take that information and adapt to it and feed that information to farmers. And at the same time also work with the farmers. A farmer calls up and they say, hey, I have a glut of, peppers, or I have a glut of spinach. Well, they can incorporate that into a share, and a customer who is more interested in supporting farmers, they might purchase the harvest box, which is a not customizable share, so they get what the farmer has.
It's really hard for the small farm to compete against the big industrial farms because they're producing on mass volumes. It's the threshold for, or their margin for profit per pound or whatever way they're marketing it, as long as they're making a little bit, they're making it. Where on a small farm, we don't have the capacity to produce those kinds of tons of food stuff. So to produce our food more locally, of course we don't have the acreage, we don't have the room to go mass production like that. So we're just going to have a lot of farmers farming the acreage as they can. And probably the consumer is going to have to want the local grown produce. It costs more to keep a small farm sustainable than it does for the big farms. So for the southeastern Pennsylvania region to produce its own local food, it would take a lot of work, a lot of farmers committing to growing the crops. I grow a lot of specialty peppers. So I have what's called a Jimmy Nardella sweet pepper. It's an Italian fryer type pepper. Very sweet. It's a thin shell. It's a great frying pepper, which I haven't seen anybody else growing them. Not for resale. It's kind of a specialty garden type pepper that people grow in their garden for themselves. That's a pretty special pepper. We also have a gypsy pepper, which is also an Italian type. It's a heavier wall than the Jimmy, and it's not a bell pepper, but it's more shaped like a bell type pepper. Has a heavy wall, kind of like a bell pepper. Very sweet. And then the shishito, which is a very popular one. And we have, what other varieties do we have?
The manganji, or
Oh yeah, the manganji, which is very similar in texture and the flesh thickness to the Jimmy, but it has a little bit of heat to it. Oh, and then we have a mini bell pepper. That's a pretty cool pepper. It's a bell pepper, but it stays very small, and it's a thick wall like a bell pepper. It's great for stuffing. In the spring and fall is lettuce and greens. You know, the baby greens, salad greens. In the summertime, baby greens are really, really hard to grow, just because of the amount of bug pressure you have through July and August. And lettuce is difficult in the summer also. When it gets that hot, it gets that bitterness to it. You don't have that sweet, crunchy lettuce as much. So, you know, kale stays fairly good in the summertime. Collard greens do well in the summertime. And then you have your normal summer crops, you know, cucumbers and zucchinis and tomatoes and peppers and summer squash, eggplants. And then in the fall, which right now the harvest would just be getting started for the squash, butternuts and spaghettis and delicatas and things like that. And then in the fall, well, spring and fall, you also have cauliflower and broccoli, which don't do well in the heat in the summer either. So it's a spring and fall type crop also. Cabbage is big in the fall. You know, the mission for the farm would be, of course, to be sustainable. We have 9 children, so, you know, we've got a lot of work to do to make ends meet. So the produce farm, our mission, our desire, however you want to name it, would be to produce the best produce that is possible to grow and get it to the consumer as fresh as possible. I just don't like that, you know, that long window between harvests and getting it to the end user, just because freshness is where the quality is.